Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We are here for the Lord of the Rings Tales from Middle-earth set review. We've got Yanks on the call, as always, and we are going to be going over all of the white cards today and giving them a rating between 1 through 5 based on the lens of limited. So that's sealed and draft. Welcome back, Yanks.
Good to be back, ready to talk some Lord of the Rings.
Yes, and you are sort of a Lord of the Rings nerd, so I expect to hear some, pretty good backstory about some of these cards, because while I've seen the movies several times and I enjoyed them a lot as a little kid, haven't seen them much as an adult, maybe only one time through as an adult. And I tried to read the books, but I didn't get very far. I got kind of bored.
Books are great. Books are great.
Yeah, it was very long and lots of descriptive stuff, and I just kept kind of falling asleep.
They are long. I will not dispute that.
So it was a little much for my tiny brain, but again, big fan of the movies, so excited to see what kind of flavor we have here. Let's kick it off with Banish from Edoras. We have a sorcery that says this spell costs 2 less to cast if it targets a tapped creature, and you can exile target creature. For 4 mana, if you're targeting a tapped creature, which seems fine, then it gets really, really cheap at only 3 mana. This seems like a solid removal spell.
Yeah, I mean, 5 mana sorcery exile any creature. I'm sold on that.
That's what we typically see, right, in white?
Yeah, this just has a little bit of upside. And targeting a tapped creature isn't that hard to do, so.
Sometimes you see, the 4 mana exile in white that's sorcery speed that gives you just a little something, like a scry or something along those lines that go with it. But I think the possible mana reduction is more than compensation for the loss of any sort of bonus.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So rating wise, this seems pretty close to white's premium removal. It's a little on the pricey side, so I would venture it's a 3.5, only because you don't want a ton of 5 mana removal spells. But I'm certainly always playing the first one of this, probably the second.
Yeah, I think 3.5 is about right. You do eventually hit a cap on how many of these you can play because of the cost.
Absolutely. All right, the Battle of Bywater. We have a 3 mana sorcery, destroy all creatures with power 3 or greater, then create a food token for each creature you control. Okay, so I love the idea that it's a one-sided board wipe for hobbits.
Yeah, one-sided for hobbits and probably for Boros as well.
That's pretty cute. I mean, I love the idea of you built the small go wide and then you just blow up any of their stuff. Power 3 or greater is a lot of cards, right?
Yeah, that's most of the creatures you're willing to play in the format.
In my head, I just picture a big clothesline and all the hobbits just keep running under it. It seems great. And for 3 mana only, and you're going to get to make a bunch of food to go on top of that at the end. So if you build your deck right and you're getting this nice low to the ground synergy and you can do a one-sided board wipe, this seems fantastic.
Yeah, the card is also, and here's, I guess, your first background story time. It's very flavorful. The Battle of Bywater was the last battle of the War of the Ring, fought back in the Shire. So while all the hobbits had been traveling with all the ring bearers and everything, they came back and found that the Shire had been taken over by basically a group of bandits, humans. And this is the hobbits fighting back against the big folk. So of course it destroys all the big creatures.
Perfect story for the card. I love it.
Yeah.
Rating wise, what do you think?
I think this is probably it's tough to do this card so early in the set review. I'd want to say it's a 4, but it could be even higher if it really does fit in those decks that well.
So I'm thinking it's sort of like a situational board clear. It's going to play a 4 in just about any deck, but if you've got the synergy in the Selesnya / Boros archetypes where you really do have a fair number of those hobbits, soldiers, those go wides, then this is going to play outrageously well and it can instantly end games. So this is going to be a 5 in some decks. It's just going to end your opponent and let you just, take over. I'm going to give it a 4-5 personally, just because I feel like it's in that sort of haymaker / good in any deck. So that was the perfect amount of story too. Well done.
Thanks.
All right. Bill the Pony. It's so cute. Oh my gosh. We have a 4-mana legendary horse creature. When Bill the Pony enters the battlefield, create 2 food tokens. You can sacrifice food until end of turn. Target creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. So 2 times it itself can smack for 4, which seems pretty good. And as we saw from the last one and so many other creatures from the introduction video, there's a lot of food in this format. So this feels pretty good for a nice big butts deck.
Yeah, it's kind of a clever way to get around the board wipe we just saw. Be able to deal 4, but as a 1-power creature.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can make an extra food token when this lives, on the battlefield through that board clear. It is interesting to me that this is an uncommon. I would think that on its own, I'm under the impression that this is not quite strong enough because you have to, it's got limited resources. It's a 4-mana 1/4 on its own. So I'm a little on the low side, but if food tokens are very abundant and or if big booties are very abundant, then I could see this playing up for sure.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you on that.
On its own, it reads like a 2/5, but because it's an uncommon, it makes me believe it's more synergy oriented and it will play like a 3 in the decks that want to have it.
And it's Bill the Pony. Everybody loves Bill the Pony.
Who's Bill the Pony?
Bill the Pony was purchased in the city of Bree after basically the hobbits had escaped the Shire, gone to Bree, and all their horses had been stolen or set free. And he bought this, or I forget which of them bought. I guess Mary technically bought Bill from the innkeeper, or from Bill Fernie, who's not the innkeeper, who was kind of a, I don't know, scumbag, I guess. Sold him for way more than he was worth, and then he accompanied them up until he fled in the Mines of Moria, and then came back in the Battle of Bywater, which we just saw, and was part of that battle and helped win the battle by kicking his former master in the ass.
Oh, does that happen in the movie? I don't remember that at all.
No, so the whole Battle of Bywater stuff gets skipped in the movies because the movies I think were already long enough, but like the movies for the most part end with like 100 pages left in the last book and kind of skip to the very end when they sail away.
Gotcha. All right.
Yeah.
Boromir, Warden of the Tower. We have a 3-mana 3/3 human soldier with vigilance. Soldier, creature type, important. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast it, counter that spell. Hello. Sacrifice Boromir, Warden of the Tower. Creatures you control gain indestructible till end of turn. The ring tempts you as well. I like that they put the ring tempts you at the back of that card. That's cute.
And I promise I'm not going to do this on every card, but this is another amazing design flavor-wise.
Bring it.
Boromir is one of the main characters of the first movie. He's part of the Fellowship of the Ring. He's the eldest son of Denethor, who's the steward of Gondor. And while traveling with the company, he eventually falls prey to the temptation of the ring and tries to take it from Frodo by force, and kind of is eventually horrified at what he's done and goes back to the group and confesses. Frodo turns invisible with the ring, runs away, and while they're trying to find him, they get attacked by the Uruk-hai, and he sacrifices himself to protect the other hobbits and help them kill the Uruk-hai and get away. So it's just kind of great. The ring tempts him, literally does in the movie, and in the process, it ends up causing his downfall while he protects them.
Yep. So you sacrifice all your other hobbits, gain indestructible, which is cute, and then the ring was tempted. Yeah, everything about this is great. It also seems fantastic synergy. I think soldiers and humans are going to be relevant. I think that it's a legendary creature in white will be very relevant because we saw that theme running through a lot of the different archetypes with white. So I think this is all around going to be a very fantastic card for limited. A 3/3 for 3 with a keyword that does some other great stuff, I'm on board. To me, this is like... The thing is, it's not the card that wins the game, but it's the card that, that gets you there. It snowballs hard. So for me, that's like a 4.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit under that at like 3.5, but it could play as a 4. I mean, we'll just see how valuable the ring tempting you is. The threat of activation on this card for indestructible is real.
Yeah, and like I said, I think it's just a solid value body all on its own, and it stops your creature, from people from being able to recast things out of graveyards for free. Like, look at the top card, cast it without its, paying any mana cost or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's I don't know if that comes up in the set or not. We'll see. It's a hell of a scary line of text for Eternal formats, though.
Yeah, certainly. I don't know. It just seems like it's got so many little pieces. It's like those little cards that, like, when you do a thing, get a food. When you do a thing, get a treasure. And, like, then you just kind of snowball out of control and win games. Even though that card doesn't actually, commit any murders, it certainly, like, hands you the knife. It's like, here you go.
Yeah.
Murder them.
I like that analogy. I like that you're using murder as an analogy on a white card.
That's true. But look at the big sword. He's going to stick him with the pointy end for sure. All right, Dawn of the New Age, 2 mana for an enchantment. It's beautiful art. Dawn of the New Age enters the battlefield with a hope counter on it for each creature you control. At the beginning of your end step, remove a hope counter from Dawn of the New Age. If you do, draw a card. Then, if Dawn of the New Age has no counters on it, sacrifice it and gain 4 life. So for 2 mana, in your Go Wide decks, Boros, Selesnya, you're going to get 4 counters. This will draw you 4 cards, and then eventually, poof, and gain some life. Seems like a nice little slow build. It's going to give you some good value, but you do need to have a pretty high number of creatures to make this worth it.
Yeah, it's slow. It does do something White doesn't see very often with card draw, although they've been starting to build more and more into White's toolkit. Yeah. Even though it's slow, I think I'm fine with it because it's cheap. You should, at worst, it's like it should be a delayed cycle where you gain 4 life.
Yeah.
And that's probably the absolute 4 is you have no creatures, but then you top deck in an empty board. But that's, for the most part, it should play much, much better than that, of course.
The reason I'm willing to give this so much oomph is because every color pairing we've seen with White, the other pairing also sort of incentivizes like this go wide synergy. Sure. With Orzoff, we saw Spirit Generation. With Azorius, we saw Soldier Generation. With the Selesnya, there was like a lot of little creatures. Boros, a ton of little creatures. Agreed. So I feel like this is just going to play up because this is going to be a very combat heavy, very creature heavy format, which just makes this card better in the vacuum of the set.
Yeah, and I think the biggest mistake you can make evaluating this card is treating it as a 2-drop. It is definitively not that.
Yes.
It is like something you play on turn 5 with a 3-drop after you've played a couple creatures or later in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I would also be okay with, like, in a Boros situation, getting to double spell this on your top end of your curve at, like, turn 4. Because you're going to run out of gas and you want to keep that going. So I'm willing to sacrifice 1 or 2 card draws to ensure that I draw 2 cards next turn and keep my foot on that gas.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, your best case in that sort of deck, right, is, like, 2-drop, 3-drop, turn 4, play 2 2-drops, turn 5, play 3-drop this, or something like that.
I mean, I don't even know if you'll have that many cards. I was thinking 2, 3, 2, then this.
2 and this is also very good.
Yeah, and then in Boros, that's deadly, right? From then on turn 5 and 6, you're getting double card draw. That's just like the nail in the coffin a lot of the times. That's all you really need to like get that extra bit of aggro.
And the fact that it's on your end step as opposed to on your upkeep does speed it up, which is nice.
Absolutely.
Like you get that card back right away.
Rating wise, I like it. I think it's like, I mean, I feel like I'm probably going to play it in every white deck, especially because I tend to run high on creatures. But that said, I still don't think it's like outrageously amazing. It's probably like a 3.
Interesting. I'm actually higher on it than you are. I think I've got this at like a 4.
Okay. That's a little high for me. Like, if you have no creatures, it's do nothing. If you are the aggro, it feels really slow for me. I'd rather just like have a 3/3 hasty or something. So it still feels good, but I don't think that it's just, it wants a lot of creatures, and it is not what I want to be doing when I want a lot of creatures, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's probably why I'm, not good at playing aggro decks, because I want things like this. Also, I mean, the art of depicting this, you would have seen this in the movie of Aragorn being crowned king of Gondor at the end of the movie in front of the White Tree of Gondor. I just think that's really good art, too.
Yeah, I think it's really pretty.
Yeah.
I'll let you do the next one.
The Dunedain Blade, It's 1 and a white for an equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+1. It has 2 different equip costs. If you're equipping a human, it only costs 1. Otherwise, it costs 3. I like this card. It's very simple. 2/1 is reasonable amount of stats. Obviously, you want to be playing this in a deck with a lot of humans, but I think that's going to be most white decks.
Yeah, I feel like if your deck has a lot of white, this is playable. Or a lot of humans. If it doesn't, then I am not interested in that 3 equip.
Yeah, I think if I'm more likely to be equipping for 3, I'm not happy with this card. But as long as it's close to 50/50, I'm probably fine with it.
I usually won't play equipment unless I have like a minimum of like, let's say 13 creatures minimum, and then it's only like 1 equipment, but it's usually more 15, 16 creatures when I'm looking for equipment. And then I would say at least half of them need to be humans.
Yeah, I think if you're right around the 50% mark, you're happy with it.
Yeah. So rating wise, I think that this is fine. I think you're right. I think a lot of white decks will have a lot of humans, both in Orzoff, Azorius. We saw a lot of humans. Are halflings humans again? I forget what they were.
No, they are not.
They are.
So I guess green. They're just halflings. The hobbits are halflings.
Halflings. That's right. Not halflings. Or not hobbits. Right. So I'm looking at this for Azorius and Orzoff, less with Selesnya, but I think that's fine.
And Boros, which has the human theme.
Oh, it's true. Yeah. Boros will be very good for this. Rating wise, I think it's very playable in those decks, and it's probably going to be a 1 of.
Yeah.
2/5.
Yeah, I think I like it at a 2/5, and there are decks where you'll just cut this card, and that's fine.
Eagles of the North. We have a 6-mana flying bird soldier. It's a 3/3 that when it enters the battlefield, creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain first strike until end of turn. All creatures, that seems pretty good. And it has plane cycling 1, means you can get extra land if you need it. I think this card all around is pretty good. 6 mana is a lot, but in limited, that's okay. And the ETB ability seems quite powerful.
Yeah, this is your top end, one of your top end for like green-white, blue-white even. It might be a little too expensive for Boros, but maybe not. You could get away with one of these.
Yeah.
I really like plane cycling only costing 1. Especially in like your aggro decks where you might be wanting to run fewer lands. You can get away with being able to like cycle this on 2 and still have a play for the turn, as opposed to old plane cycling 2 where it kind of killed your turn.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. It's a solid. I like it in Boros, like on turn 3, plane cycle, right? Like you were saying, and then play a 2-drop. I think that's a reasonable play. It allows you to sort of play these not completely interchangeable with those extra lands, but it does let you get to be a little bit greedy, especially in Best of 1, where there's like some hand smoothing stuff going on. But either way, plane cycling makes this a top tier cycle for me. I'm in. I think it is kind of expensive, so you can't have a lot of them, but it can end games. So it's like a 3/5 for me.
I think I've got it at a 3, but in that same range. And it's kind of just a little bit like the last card in the sense that you'll just know when you don't want to play this. It's not that complicated.
I think I might be a little higher on the plane cycling because like the ability and the mana cost, I'm still pretty low on. I feel like I am like 2/5, but with the added plane cycling to me just has no downside. So it's like I'm always playing this.
Yeah.
All right. East Mark Cavalier, 2-mana 2/2, human knight with vigilance. When it deals combat damage to a goblin or orc, destroy that creature. We've seen this a lot actually in other formats with dinosaurs. They had a similar dinosaur hunter. Yeah, exactly. And I'm pretty sure I've seen it once or twice with other creatures as well. Like there was one for vampires, I think, or werewolves.
Yeah, I think there might have been both in those sets.
Yeah. So it's a common theme where you have the hunter do the thing. So it's a bear with a keyword that I like, and it's got some solid upside. This is basically making the cut in any white deck for me.
Yeah, it's a human. You're not going to get to use that ability to kill something for free very often, but it lets you trade up against bigger things.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just solid on its own. 2/2 vigilance for 2. And sometimes they'll have a big goblin that they get really annoyed with you because of this, and sometimes they won't, but that's totally fine. So to me, this is like a 3.
Yeah, I think a 3 is good.
All right, we have East Farthing Farmer, 3 mana, 2/3 halfling peasant. When the farmer enters the battlefield, create a food token. When you do, target creature you control gets +1/+1 till end of turn for each food you control. So automatically comes into play, gives +1/+1, guaranteed, maybe more. And it's like fine on curve and gives you a second piece of cardboard. I think this is good. This is like a 2/5, and they stack real well.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think it adds an interesting sort of dimension to food tokens, where a lot of times in the past you'd have them and they're like, I've got 2 free mana at end of turn, I'll just gain 3 life. You don't necessarily always want to do that when you've got stuff like this in your deck. So
yeah, absolutely. So you like the rating of 2/5?
I like it at 2/5, yeah.
All right. Errand Rider of Gondor, 3 mana for a 3/2. When he enters the battlefield, draw a card. Then if you don't control a legendary creature, put a card from your hand onto the bottom of your library. So he's a free looter, or you just get to draw a card if you have those legendary creatures matter, which is the sort of Orzoff archetype. Either way, I think I'm pretty happy with the ability, and it's pretty busted if you just get to draw the card.
Yeah, I mean, at worst, it's kind of looting. It's a little worse than looting because you'd rather, most of the time, a card be in your graveyard than the bottom of the deck. But yeah, I mean, if that's the worst case on your 3 mana 3/2, I'm pretty happy by that.
Yeah. A lot of white decks don't care a ton for cards in your graveyard, so
it's probably only black-white.
Yes. Even then, I still think we're going to see most of the recursion come out of the green side of things for that, and also you just don't get rid of like a creature you'd want to recur anyway. You get rid of like, the land or whatever. So I'd rather have the library size in some limited games.
That's fair.
I've died too many times to having no cards in my library, and I'm traumatized. Rating wise, like I said, if you have some legendary creatures, this is great. It's fine on curve. This is a solid 2/5 that will play up in the legendaries deck.
Yeah, and the other thing to remember again in this format is the ring. Yep. You don't have to have that many legendaries because the ring makes them legendary.
Yeah, so if you have anything that tempts and then you can suit up one of your creatures with the ring, this will automatically trigger and you'll just get free card draw, which is fantastic and white. I love to see it.
Yeah, but I think you're right. I think 2/5 is pretty good. That can play better.
All right, I'll let you take this one.
Escape from Orthanc. 1 mana instant, just a white for target creature gets +1/+3 and gains flying until end of turn. Untap it.
Sort of Mighty Leap. I like the untap combat trick for blocks. It blocks air, blocks with tapped creatures, does everything. The main reason I had you read it is because I didn't want to say the word because I knew I was going to butcher it. So thanks. 1 mana is a great cost for combat tricks. That's where I like to be. This is the type of card where I'm going to play one of these if I can make room. Easy cut, but I'm happy to have one. For me, it's like a 2/5.
I think I'm right with you. I'm usually not that high on combat tricks, but I do like the untap ones when they give either flying or reach.
Yes.
Just kind of surprise blocks out of nowhere is usually pretty good for, to steal a creature, especially when you're giving that much extra toughness.
Yeah, these ones are super flexible, and for only 1 mana, you can, like I said, you can surprise block flyers, you can untap block surprise, which is always really nice, and also you could just leap your freaking idiot and kill them. Like, the range of this card, the situations in which you want to play this card is wide, and for only 1 mana, it's going to be hard to play around. That's my favorite. It's so hard to play around 1 white open.
Agreed.
So I'm pretty happy to run the first one of these. Cut it if you don't have room. That's totally fine, but I think it's great. Esquire of the King, 1 mana for a 1/1 for 5 mana. You can tap. Creatures you control get +1/+1 till end of turn. This ability costs 2 less to activate if you control a legendary creature. Again, a creature with the ring. So this person gets stronger if they are following someone who's a legendary or if someone who has the ring. I love the flavor there. That seems great. And it's a 1/1, and it's a relevant creature type and does some stuff. This is sort of what, aggro dreams are made out of.
Yeah, 1 mana 1/1s usually need to have decent something on their card to make me want to play them. And between that ability and the creature type, it's pretty good.
Yeah, you do have to have a creature-heavy deck for this. So the average deck is like pretty medium on this card, but I still think it's a playable. I think it's like a 2, and it will play up in your Boros type decks.
Yeah, I think you're looking at a 2. It doesn't have the biggest ceiling, but it's probably it can get up to like a 2/5.
Moving on, we have a Boromir Field Commander, 4 mana for a 3/3 human soldier. That's also a legendary and uncommon. Important. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature died under your control this turn, draw a card. White, you're getting so good. I love you. When the ring tempts you, if you choose a creature other than Boromir Field Commander as your ring bearer, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. You go wide, you do the thing. I think this card's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's a good card. It's interesting that it's usually you'd think like whenever the ring tempts you, if you choose this, you'd get the token, not something else.
But I'm sure that has to do with flavor. Like this guy probably didn't want the ring in the movie or something, or in the book. I don't actually remember this character in the movies.
Yeah, so he's Boromir's younger brother. He basically Frodo essentially offers him to take the ring with them, and he declines. So it does make sense from a flavor perspective.
Great. They're doing a great job with the flavor here.
Yeah.
The first clause is what makes me super high on this card. And it's your end step, so you can like sort of make that happen. There's sacrifice synergies in the format. You could just run your little, idiot 2/2 into them and be like, take 2 or let me have cards, thanks. And that feels pretty good. So I like this card. I'm in the like 3.5.
Yeah, I think I'm right there at 3.5 as well.
It makes combat tricks and removal like really tricky for your opponent, because essentially if your creature's bigger and they have a pump spell, they're basically trading that pump spell 1 for 0 at that point, right? They're not getting an edge on anything anymore, which I think is pretty neat.
Yeah, agreed.
All right. Flowering of the White Tree, 2 mana for a legendary enchantment. Legendary creatures you control get +2/+1 and have ward 1. Non-legendary creatures you control get +1/+1. For 2 mana, that's pretty good. I thought that this was going to be bad for the first half of that clause. I was like, you have to have a very specific deck. But no, 2 mana for all creatures get +1/+1 or better seems great.
Talk about your power creep on anthems.
Right?
Only 2 mana and you just get a random bonus for legendaries.
Yes. This used to be what, like colorless white for regular, for the regular one,
Anthem.
right?
Yeah,
Glorious Anthem. And your legendary creatures with ward 1 are going to get pretty nutty, given that there's a lot of legendary creatures in this set.
Yeah. How nerdy am I allowed to get on stories? Because this kind of has one.
You're allowed to get like a minute and a half nerdy.
Okay, so the White Tree of Gondor is based on, this is where if you have to have gone back and read like the Silmarillion, basically when the world was created out of darkness, the Vala created 2 trees, a silver tree and a gold tree, to provide light, and kind of one waxed and waned. Daytime with the golden tree provided the golden light, and nighttime was the silver light. Which was the silver tree was called Telperion. And eventually those trees die as part of the mythology, and the final fruits of them become the sun and the moon. But this flowering of the white tree, the white saplings and trees were built in the image of Telperion, the oldest of those 2 trees, of the silver tree of Valinor.
That is interesting, very nerdy.
Yes.
Less fun than your other tidbits.
Agreed. Start getting into the mythology and the Silmarillion, it's a little bit more complicated and confusing.
Someone in chat did make an relevant thing talking about it's a legendary enchantment, so you can't stack them up, which is very true and is relevant for constructed. Absolutely. I will say that this is a limited set review, so a little less relevant for me, only because the likelihood of me drafting 2 of these, not super high, and then the likelihood of drawing both of those, also not super high. So I think that's not a non-issue here for me as far as rating goes. So rating-wise, I think I'm playing this in every white deck, no matter how many legendary creatures I have. So I kind of want to give it a 4.
Yeah, that's where I am on it. I think anthems generally are that good.
If you have no legendary creatures, or if you have like a 12 creature count deck, then obviously it will play down, but I don't feel like that is ever what white is trying to do in this set. So I'm willing to err on the higher side.
Yeah, I mean, if you just think about how this card basically gives every creature you have like an increase in its mana value by like at least 1.
Yeah.
The value you start getting in that in terms of combat and all that stuff is just incredible.
All right, Fog on the Barrow Downs. We've got a 3 mana enchant aura. Enchant creature is a spirit and can't attack or block. It loses all other creature types. Interesting. I've never really seen these change the creature type much. I mean, sometimes it turns them into an 0/1 frog because the idea is that you are frogging the thing, which is why it is now an 0/1. But I wonder why this is turning someone into a spirit. I'm sure there's some flavor here. Are they sucking the souls out of people or something?
It's basically, the Barrow Downs is an area which is filled with like spirits and wights. And basically the hobbits are kind of under the spell as they walk through, trying to get through that area in the passage, and they came close to sort of succumbing to that, but they were eventually able to break free. But it's all just ghosts and spirits, and that's the threat in that area.
So if they didn't break free, would they have become a ghost or a spirit?
Essentially, they just would never. I don't know if it necessarily would have turned into a spirit, or they just would never have been able to leave. Like they would have fallen asleep and never come down.
Okay, fair enough. Either way, white's premium aura removal spell. I mean, these are always like a 4 for me.
Yeah, we sometimes see these at 2 mana instead of 3, but it's still very good.
Yep. Also, it's going to depend a little bit, too, on how many, like, convenient, easy enchantment removals there are. Once you start getting enchantment removal stapled onto creatures in sets, then these, like, lose a bit of value. But I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt for now.
Agreed.
All right. Forge Anew, my
preview this
card. I got to see this card, like, a week in advance, and I was, like, super stoked because it's pretty cool. I'm going to play this a bunch in Commander, I'm sure. Forge Anew, 3 mana enchantment that says whenever Forge Anew enters battlefield, return target equipment card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Ooh, that's spicy. And as long as it's your turn, you may activate equip abilities at instant speed, and you may pay 0 rather than pay the equip cost for your first equip ability you activate during each of your turns. So I think it's hammer time.
Say you may pay 0 to equip Colossus Hammer.
Yeah, let's go. Not a thing I'm looking to do in Limited, I think, in this set. But sometimes there's equipments, but even then, I'm not really willing to go that hard onto them. But it feels constructed-y to me.
Yeah, this is a constructed combo piece more than it is any sort of limited playable card.
Now, we have had some sets where equipment ETB as creatures and attach themselves. And then I would love to like pack one, pick one this, and then just draft all of those and then have them like, come in as creatures and then suit them all up with each other's shit for free. That seems pretty solid, but that's not going to be this set. So I'm going to give this a 1.
Yeah, it's a 1.
All right. Frodo, Sauron's Bane, a 1 mana 1/2 halfling citizen. It's a rare. And for Orzoff mana pips, if Frodo Sauron's Bane is a citizen, it becomes a halfling scout with base power and toughness 2/3 and lifelink. I read that, I was like, wait a minute, it is a citizen, I don't get it. Keep reading, got it. Black, 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 if it's a scout, it becomes a halfling rogue with whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game if the ring has tempted you 4 or more times this game. Otherwise, the ring tempts you. What? So this is it, right? That's some flavor shit there. Wow. Huh. So he starts out as just a little dude, and then he turns into a medium dude that can, like, get lifelink. He grows, and then he throws the ring into Mount Doom.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Great. This is great flavor. Basically, they'll lose the game. part is interesting. If you get tempted enough, you succumb, I guess, is the concept there. But yeah, this is great. And I like that they're starting to use, it's only ever at rare, but they're starting to use like the Figure of Destiny style. If this, then you can do this, and sort of stack abilities that way. We saw it like in Dominaria United with Evolved Sleeper. We started to see a few of these.
What was that stupid freaking artifact blue creature that like became
I think it's Surge Engine.
became a 3/2 and then became unblockable, and it was just like you lose with a 2-drop or something. Oh god, that was a nightmare. This is more reasonable. It requires a lot of things to be done, and I think it's super cool. So it's a slow build. For 3 mana, you end up with a 2/3 with lifelink. I'm in for that. And then after that, you end up with a creature that, tempts the ring over and over again. That seems great. I think this card is fantastic on its own, and only gets better if your opponent doesn't have removal. It wins games.
Yeah. This card, you can definitely see that this card was like, all right, design Frodo at the end of the story.
Yeah.
Go.
I love it.
And this is what they came up with, which I think is pretty cool.
What is the rating on this card?
It's interesting. You almost have to rate this as a gold card, I think.
Yes.
To some degree, because for
Orzoff, black is hard.
Yeah, even if you don't include that, like you're then looking at white to. You can do it over 2 turns. Yeah,
you do it over 2 turns. You're looking at white. It's a 3 mana 2/3 with lifelink split over 2 turns. I think is like the floor, which I think is fine because it doesn't attack on its turn anyway.
Yeah, and but that card's not exciting.
No, but it's very playable.
Yeah, so I think this
how exciting was Frodo in the first 6 hours of the movie? Not very.
No, he was kind of whiny.
Yeah, Sam was like the stuff, man.
Yeah,
I bet Sam's gonna be way stronger for sure.
Yeah, I think I've got this at like a 3.
Wait a minute, I'm kind of mad. Isn't Sam Selesnya? So they can't be in the same deck, really. That's stupid. That's poor flavor.
Well, remember that each one of these has multiple versions. So there are multiple Frodos, there are multiple Sams.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Representing different parts of
the of
the story.
So
like we will see there is a mono white Sam coming up.
Okay, fine. I take it back. Rating wise, I think it's fine on its floor. Even if you're just white, it's going to be like a 2/3. If you're in Orzoff, I'm into it. It's going to be like a 3/5 win condition. Yeah. You like that rating?
Yeah, no, I like that.
All right. Gandalf the White, 5 mana for a 4/5 with flash. You may cast legendary spells and artifacts as though they had flash. That's a nice bonus. And if you have a lot of mana, you can flash this and then flash more stuff and then get real tricksy. If a legendary permanent or an artifact entering or leaving the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. Blib. Who she shells on the she triggered shore.
Yeah, they need to just like instead of spelling this out, it should just say like legendary Panharmonicon, and we all understand. Like
rating wise, I like it. I think it's a solid body for 5 mana, and it flashes at that. It's a legendary creature, which is relevant. I think the creature type Avatar Wizard's pretty dope. Yeah, this card seems great to me. I don't know how many legendary permanents will trigger abilities, but I think it will be a solid number in the set to where there will be some synergy no matter what you're really looking at here. Whether it like goes hard or not, probably not, but I think it's fine.
Yeah, I need to see how much stuff this works with, but at minimum, 5 mana 4/5 flash can probably eat something.
Yeah. It seems pretty big in the set.
Yeah, getting to cast some other things as though they had flash is nice because you will have a couple other legendaries in your deck.
Yeah, this seems strong. It's a funky, Elish Norn mommy. So I mean, I'm gonna go on a limb and say that this is gonna play really well. I'm gonna say that this is a 4.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn between 3, 5, and 4, but we're still early in the set review, and we've seen a lot of legendaries already, so I'm leaning towards that with the 4.
I think it's going to let, a 4/5 with Flash that's going to let you cast things for Flash. I think there's enough legendaries to where that will be very relevant, and I'm happy there. All right, Hobbits Sting, 2 mana for an instant. Hobbit Sting deals X damage to target creature, where X is the number of creatures you control plus the number of food you control. Oh, that was a nice little include. Yeah. I think that's good.
Yeah, we see the first part of this card a lot, and now we just get some, food flavor for the Selesnya deck, or just for Hobbits in general.
The Hobbitses. I think this card's awesome. This is going to be White's sort of like premium-ish removal. You have to have creatures. It's a terrible top deck. So it's a 3/5 because it's super situational, but it's definitely the type of removal I want to have multiples of in every White deck.
Also, even though like the picture is him with the sword Sting, I'm just picturing this card as him like throwing food at people.
Aw.
I'll kill you with this apple.
I like that sword. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's even kind of glowing like it did in the movie, or in the story in general.
All right, moving on to an uncommon, Land Roval, Horizon's Witness. I'm sure I butchered that. 5 mana for a noble bird. It's a 3/5. I love those bird stats. Give me some Wingmate Rock. It's got flying, and whenever 2 or more creatures you control attack a player, target attacking creature without flying gains flying until end of turn. Cool, so it leaps. So whenever 2 or more creatures you control. So it plus another. That benefit that is minor. I feel like it doesn't even need to say that. Oh, yeah. It does need to say it because you don't have to attack with this.
Yes.
So you can, the turn this ETBs, you can trigger it. That's cool. In my head, I was like, why are you saying this? Because you could just say whenever this attacks, another creature gets flying. That's so much more simple. But this is tricky because, again, you can play this, attack with 2 other things, and leap one of them. That's cool. So The flavor is because the bird came and picked you up. Yep. Last minute.
Which is, he was one of the giant or great eagles that came and rescued Sam and Frodo at the end after they dropped the ring in Mount Doom. He was one of the 4 great eagles that came and helped bear them away from Mordor.
Yeah, I still agree with the internet. If they could be by the lava, why didn't they just take the ring and go throw it in?
Yeah, why didn't they all just fly there in the first place?
Why didn't the eagles help them?
Yeah.
Rating wise, I think this is cool. It's a solid 5-drop. I'm on board for this. This is like a 3.
Yeah, I've got it as a 3.
And we haven't seen 5-drops be too chunky like they used to be in like 2-3 years ago. Now I'm seeing my 3s and 4-drops be more chunky. So like I don't typically have to cut a bunch of 5s because I usually only end up with 1 or 2 anyway.
Sure.
All right. Yeah. Lost to Legend. We have a 2 mana, put target non-land historic permanent into its owner's library, 4th from the top. So this is a bounce removal spell for legendary creatures, sagas, artifacts, all sorts of things. I think that's okay. It's a little situational for my taste in a best of 1 format, but I feel like it's a fine 23rd playable card in any deck.
Yeah, I think the ring making things legendary is a big deal here again.
I think there's enough stuff where you'll probably hit something. I just feel like there will be a lot of times where you're like, I wish I could bounce this, but I can't. And then yeah.
Yeah, I think that's why this is only costing 2. Like putting stuff back into the deck, especially that far down, usually costs a little more.
Yes, I just worried that there's gonna be some matchups where you just don't hit anything.
Yeah, I think that's probably true.
For me, it's like a 20. I'm going to put it at like a 2, but it's a heavy sideboard card. This is a card you're going to be bringing in all the time. It's going to be a thing I want 2 or 3 copies of in my sideboard because in the decks that are, built around the legendary creatures or going with the ring, getting the ring deep, this will be amazing. So very, very happy to have this card, but not super necessarily going to be playing it in a lot of decks.
I'm a little higher. I think I'm probably playing this in almost every White deck. My thoughts are we've seen enough both monocolor and uncommon legendaries that I think there's going to be enough to hit. Yes, it's not always going to hit what you want, but neither does Shock, and we play that in every red deck. So I think...
But Shock does hit everything. So there's like other workarounds, like attacking into it first or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't. I'm not saying I'm going to play 4 of these. Like I'd probably play 4 Shocks, but I probably will play the first one every time.
I feel like in most of the time in Boros and Orzoff and Selesnya and even in Orzoff, I'm going to be wanting a lot of creatures. I'm going to be wanting a high number of things, and it's going to be more aggressive. White seems more aggressive to me, so I don't want cards to be situational. I want to just be able to sort of poop out my hand, and I want all of the things in my hand to be able to do something. Like in Best of One, I'd rather have the 1/3 combat trick that untaps rather than this. Happy to board this in and swap those should they become relevant in the matchups. But I'm not really willing to risk this just being a dead card for some number of turns because I want my white decks to get the game done quick.
That's fair. I could definitely see that argument in Boros. I'm not sure like Orzoff is going to be that aggressive.
Orzoff, I think, is on the line. I agree with Orzoff. That could be a lot slower because it had that drain mechanic, so that's a much slower deck. But then even Azorius, which is typically more control-y, is soldier-themed.
Yeah. It's also got that 2 or more card draw, which is not going to be a fast mechanic.
Yeah.
So I definitely see what you're saying in Boros and maybe even Selesnya, but I definitely think the other, which maybe why I'm saying I'll play this in most white decks is those are typically my least drafted decks. So I do tend to end up if I'm going to be playing white, I do tend to end up in Orzoff or Azorius a lot more.
Yeah, I think Azorius will be more aggro than you think, only because of how Brothers War was. Like, it was really 1, 2, 3, go get them. But I think in Azorius Orzoff and what's the other color pairing? Is there one more? Selesnya. Even Selesnya feels like go wide, but it typically feels more slow to me as well. A little bit more grindy. Either way. So I'm at a 2. Where's your rating? 2.5?
I'm probably at 2.5, yeah.
All right. Nimble Hobbit, 2 mana for a 1/3. Whenever Nimble Hobbit attacks, you may sacrifice a food or pay 3. When you do, tap target creature an opponent controls. That's kind of cool.
Tricksy little hobbits.
It is very trixies. We got a good feat pick here. I like that you can sack a food or tap, which is nice. So it's not like just dead in the water if you don't have a lot of food synergy. And a 1/3 for 2 mana is fine, like filling wise. So it's a nice little ability on a aggressive deck.
Yeah, I think this is cards you'll play. But you're not going out of your way looking for it.
Absolutely, filler for me. I think it's like a 2, and then a fine thing in a Boros deck.
Yeah, or if you're heavy food in Selesnya.
Yeah. Now for Wrath. Now for Ruin. 4 mana for a sorcery. Put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. They gain vigilance until end of turn. The ring tempts you. That's neat. I like this. It's sorcery speed, so it's a little less fun, but putting a +1/+1 counter on all your creatures can be quite powerful, and we definitely want to be tempting the ring. So I think this is going to be a playable card. You're not going to want to run too many at 4, but I'm pretty happy to play it.
Yeah, we see these sort of like, this is a little different because you're getting some lasting benefit in the counters, but the sort of inspired charge type effects that you really only want if you're going wide.
Yep. I mean, you still certainly need to have at least 14 creatures in the deck to run one of these?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah. This is a cool, it's kind of a weird card name, right? Like this is kind of something you might have seen in AFR, like the D&D set, more so than in most Magic sets, but it's a pretty good quote from Theoden Rohan in the Two Towers in Helm's Deep when they ride out to fight, obviously on horseback, as you see. It's let this be the hour when we draw swords together. Fell deeds awake, now for wrath, now for ruin, and the red dawn for Theorlingus is kind of his most well-known line from the movies.
Nice.
In the story.
It is good to have a Lord of the Rings dweeb with the show. All right. So rating wise, like I said, I think it's playable as a one of, but certainly cuttable if you don't have the creatures. I think it's a 2/5.
Yeah, I think it's a 2/5 as well.
All right. Protector of Gondor, a human soldier, 3/3 for 4. When it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 human soldier token. Great. 4/4 over 2 bodies, goes wide. Human soldiers is relevant creature types. Sacrifice theme. I'm for this card. A little, 4-drops tend to get a little chunky, so you're not going to want to run a ton of these, but we've seen the bird give +1/+0. We've seen the last card put +1/+1 counters. There's a ton of reasons why we want this 1/1 split into 2 bodies, right? So to me, this feels fine and everything white wants to be doing. So it's a solid 2/5 for me.
Yeah. 4/4 over 2 bodies and both humans, exactly what you want.
You agree with the rating?
Good. Yep, 2/5 sounds good.
All right, Reprieve, 2 mana for an instant. Return target spell to its owner's hand. Draw a card. Interesting.
This is an interesting almost reprint of Remand. It's not quite the same. Obviously, Remand was in blue, and it actually was counter target spell. If a spell is countered this way, return it to its owner's hand, draw a card. Mm-hmm. It's interesting that they're putting this in white.
Yeah. It's just a tempo card, which I'm fine with. I think Boros wants to be tempo. It's an interesting card. I feel like it's the type of card that you probably want to play slightly more than I will play it, because I will want to make cuts, and this is always a sneaky easy cut. Because you're just like, hey, it just does the thing. It cycles. But I feel like you actually will want to play this a fair amount of time.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I didn't play a lot of limited sets where Remand was in the set, but you pretty much always wanted to play that card, and this is better because it doesn't have to deal with uncounterable stuff. It still works.
Yeah, I feel like this is a 2/5, but I will probably cut it more than I should.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, this is a lot of tempo, right? You get even a 4-drop, but imagine doing this to a 6-drop. You just ate their turn.
Yeah, you ate their turn, and you are in white, oftentimes going wide. So being able to stop their blocker one additional time, on turn 4, right? You play a 2-drop and you hold open, and then you crack them for your 2 and your 3-drop. Then they try to slam a 4 or a 5-drop, and you're just like, no, thank you. And then you crack them for 2, 2, and 3, right? That's pretty strong. Honestly, that's going to be game ending a lot of the times. So yeah, I think this is a 2/5.
Makes combat really uncomfortable for people too, because they can't rely on their combat tricks resolving.
Or removal or something like that. Removal, if they're just no blocks, kill your thing, and you're just bounce your removal spell and you die. Yeah. Definitely an interesting one. All right, Rosie Cotton of South Lane, a 3-mana 1/1 halfling peasant. When it enters the battlefield, create a food token. Whenever you create a food token, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control other than Rosie. So if you have no other creatures when this comes into play, it doesn't do anything. But when you do, it's 2 power over 2 bodies, which is fine. And I feel like it will get very big very quickly.
Yep, and it's whenever you create any token, not just create a food token.
Oh, whenever you create a token. Yeah, so soldier tokens will be relevant here, so that's even bigger. Yeah, this seems like everything white wants to be doing, because we've seen a ton of things that poop out little white tokens. And foods.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is tailor-made for the green-white deck, but it's going to be good in most white decks, period.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a little on the pricey side, but highly synergistic. I think this is going to be a 1 in a fair number of decks. And I think it'll be a high synergy payoff in tokens, which I think is a wide range of different colors. I think the Azorius and the Selesnya really want this card, and I think it'll play closer to a 3.
Yeah, I think I'm leaning towards that. You're right that in some decks it probably is a 1, but I think enough white decks it's going to be good enough that I'm okay just giving it a 3.
All right, Samwise, the Stout-Hearted, a 2/1 2-mana flash creature that says, when it enters the battlefield, choose up to 1 target permanent card in your graveyard that was put there this turn. Return it to your hand, then the ring tempts you. That's cute. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I like this card a lot.
That's just an uncommon? That feels really strong.
Yeah, I mean, Flash on its own is good for a number of reasons, but
so its card value, it's a fine-sized creature with Flash, and it lets you tempt the ring in addition? That's some spicy value for an uncommon.
Yeah, this card is very good.
That's like a 4. This is pack 1 pickable, like, every time.
Yeah, I think I'm probably at 3-5, but that's still a pack 1 pick 1 a lot of times.
Yeah, we're gonna stay a half point off on that one because I really like this card. All right, second breakfast. 3 mana for an instant. Up to 2 target creatures get +2/+1 until end of turn, and you get to create a food token. Lovely synergy, and we always want second breakfast.
I don't think he knows about second breakfast.
Always got to have second breakfast.
I just want there to be a card called Elevensies.
I do remember that. I just need to go binge all the movies now. Fine rating for stats. 3 mana for an instant that's across 2 bodies. 4 damage is a lot. It's going to make all your little tokens trade up pretty massively. I'm fine for it, and it's also going to, trigger your Rosie and trigger your, tap target creature stuff. So very synergistic card. I think you, in most decks, are happy to play the first one of these. So I'm going to say it's like white just makes so many poopy dudes. So I'm for this card. I think the first one's like a 2/5, but you don't want more than 1.
Yeah, I think I'm at a 2. I just don't love expensive combat tricks.
Yeah, I don't even really think of it that much as a combat trick, honestly. Like, this can just be face up. And honestly, that much damage can also just kill people.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know, 3 mana is it ends up just being your turn too often. Yeah.
I think the food token really brings it home for me.
Sure.
Shire Sheriff. We have a 2 mana 2/2 halfling soldier with vigilance. When it enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice a token. When you do, exile target creature an opponent controls until Shire Sheriff leaves the battlefield. It's a decent rate. Normally it's like a worse rate, but I don't love that you have to sacrifice a thing for it.
Yeah, the fact that you can sacrifice a food is nice. It doesn't have to be a creature.
But normally you don't have to sacrifice anything, and it just does it.
Yeah, but those don't cost 2 mana.
They're usually like 3 mana 1/3s.
1/3s, yeah. With
so this
no
is
keywords.
Like this is easier to kill. I don't know. I'm kind of indifferent. I still think it's very playable. I just don't want to have a requirement on this ability because it's already not that good because they can get the thing back. So the idea that you have to also sacrifice a thing to get it to work makes me sad.
Yeah, it's not amazing. We are seeing a decent number of tokens in the set, so you could just basically trade off tokens if you needed to. Maybe trade a food for a creature token, because that obviously wouldn't come back.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's not an amazing card, but I'm still playing it in every deck.
Absolutely. It's a 2/2 for 2. I'm just disappointed. I'm not mad. I'm disappointed.
It's got great flavor text. So they're arrested for gate breaking, tearing up of rules, trespassing, and bribing guards with food.
That is great flavor text.
Yeah.
Rating wise, I think this is like a 3, but I'm still disappointed in it.
I will join your disappointed 3.
Slip on the Ring. 2 mana for an instant. Exile target creature you own. Then return it to the battlefield under your control. The ring tempts you. So anti-removal. Ring tempts you, I think, is really, really cool. I'm very high on that for some reason. I think it's fantastic and fun. And also you have a lot of ETBs here that are making foods, making creatures, doing stuff. So I think I'm happy to have this in every white deck as well. I tend to like these sort of flicker abilities. I think this is going to be a 2/5 for the first one.
I think so too. It's interestingly worded. Because usually this card is exile target creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control, and it flips it in this case.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if there are any, we haven't seen them yet because we're only in white, but if there are any control magic effects, you can get your creature back from them.
That's true.
Which is interesting. And it's just great flavor, right? That's what the ring does. You disappear. And then you come back later when you take it off.
Yes, that is true. I do like that flavor. And the art captures that very well.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, I like. What did we give it a number?
I gave it a 2/5 for the first one.
2/5. Yeah, I like 2/5.
Soldier of the Grey Host, 4 mana for a 2/2, flash and flying. When it enters the battlefield, target creature you control gets +2/+0 until end of turn. So it's like a little built-in combat trick. Spirit soldiers, they flash in, they do things. I think that's fine. It's a little expensive for a 4 mana 2/2 for me, but I think it's playable. I'm going to give it a 2/5.
Yeah, I think 2/5 is good. It's another kind of good flavor card, the Grey Host, which they brought down with them from I forget the name of where they traveled through the kind of like Tombs of the Dead and confront Aragorn, and they bring this sort of army of ghosts to the Battle of Pelennor Fields. Just kind of, I like the art kind of shows that moment, and you might remember from the movie where you kind of the ghost, the Path of the Dead. Thank you, Library Witch K. Where you see the soldier, the ghost sort of swing down on him, and he actually is able to block the spirit sword because he's of the line of unbroken line of kings.
Yep, I do remember that part in the movie as well. Do you like the rating 2/5?
I do. I like it as a 2/5.
All right, how do you say this word?
Stalwarts of Osgiliath.
Osgiliath. A human soldier, 5 mana for a 4/3. When it enters the battlefield, the ring tempts you. Yay! I don't know. I'm just really high on it for some reason. For no reason. Just because I want to be tempted by the ring. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on the Stalwarts of Osgiliath. 5 mana for a 5/4 is sort of the rate in which your vanilla creatures are, but you get the free tempt, so you gotta kind of torn with this card. Like, I feel like the stats are not good enough, but the ring tempts you gives some value. After you draw your second card one time plus the ring, then I'm like on board, but you have to be able to consistently draw that card. And anything beyond that, then you're happier. So for me, this is like a 2 that can play up.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, it's hard to give it too much higher than a 2 just because you're right, its stats aren't great. But if you're in that, blue-white deck that wants the second card each turn, stuff, the ring tempts you, right? The second time the ring tempts you, you get turn something into a looter, so you can get that second card right away potentially.
Yeah.
If it can attack, so you might be able to get that trigger pretty quickly.
That makes sense. All right, 2 plays up. Tale of Tinuviel. I'm sure I butchered that. Saga, target creature you control gains indestructible as long as you control this tale. Second chapter, you can return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Yes, please. 3 mana, up to 2 target creatures you control, each gain lifelink until end of turn. Chapter 2 is honestly where it's at. That's the hotness. This is pretty good for an uncommon. That's some good value, I think.
Yeah. First chapter is kind of whatever, but it's not nothing. Yeah, you're right though. That chapter 2 is where the value is. It's kind of unfortunate that you lose the value from chapter 1 when you get 3, so you don't get something that's indestructible in lifelink even for a turn.
Yes, but I think that's okay. Like, I'm just my best creature is just indestructible as far as like defense or even like offense, and they have to chump it or something. They can't make profitable trades ever. That's nice. Or it just makes your bomb indestructible for 2 turns. That seems good, and then you just get to bring something good back or something even mediocre. I'm pretty happy with this card. So this is a strong uncommon for me. This is like a 3.5.
Yeah, that's where I like it as well. Tinuviel is a sort of lore character back from, again, kind of mythology in this, where it's kind of like a one of those sort of classic romance stories where she's an elf who falls in love with the human. There's a long story about what the human had to do to try to get the right to marry her, which is her as the daughter of a king and an angelic being. So it was shooting pretty far far above his station, but it's the Lay of Leithian is what it's called. It's a pretty cool story.
Nice. The art, I see the elf woman and the human. That's very cute.
Yeah.
All right. The Took Reaper, 2 mana for a 2/1. When it dies, the ring tempts you. It's a pretty card. I don't see there's a lot of 1/1 soldiers that are generated by other cards, which makes me not super happy about this. But if you're trading with this with 2/2s, which there are a lot, or if you're trading it with something more relevant, I think that's fine. But if I'm just gonna get bricked by like a free soldier, then I think this is kind of mopey.
Yeah, I think it's how much do you want
The
ring trigger.
Yeah.
But even if I wanted a lot, I'm still not thrilled with this card. It's just filler.
Yeah, I mean, that said, I still think it's fine. And you got to pick your spots. Don't die to a soldier and call it good. I like the ring. So I'm still saying this is at least like a 2. It's a fine 2-drop.
Yeah, I feel like I want to put this at a 1/5 only because we haven't had any, and something has to be bad if everything else is good. So maybe this is just on the low end nowadays.
My preview card was a 1.
Yes, but that's your like weird kind of your weird rare enchantment that we always get those, but we've had no creatures that are bad by a classic sense. So
they don't
this
design.
Just might be.
They just don't design sets like that anymore. When we first started doing set reviews, when I first started playing Magic, like half the set was just absolutely unplayable. Yeah. You played the same half the set every time. But now they've really started to sort of turning the set design to fundamentally every single card has a place. So it's kind of hard to rate things poorly anymore just because like everything is pretty good and like deck building is so much more diverse than it was before.
Yeah, I think what I'm kind of getting at is that if cards are just getting better, then cards that used to be okay just aren't anymore.
Yeah, but there's no rule that says every card can't be equally balanced good, right? Like
no, I agree. I just think this is like the worst one we've seen, so it probably needs a lower rating in my opinion.
I see. Okay, yeah, I guess I'm just really high on the ring tempts you. So
yeah, and that may very well be, which could definitely raise its rating if that's as good as it looks like it could be.
Yes, I agree with you that this creature is super mopey, and the only reason I'm giving it that playable rating is because the ring tempts you. I'm giving that way more benefit than the creature itself.
It is a very big scythe for a very small halfling, too.
It is. All right, War of the Last Alliance. It's a saga. Chapters 1 and 2. Search your library for a legendary creature card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. That seems pretty good. And then creatures you control gain double strike until end of turn, and the ring tempts you. That seems fine. That's great card advantage if you have the legendary creatures, which doesn't seem too hard.
Yeah, I think in most sets, this card, we would just kind of ignore it because you just wouldn't have enough targets. But, we're one color in, and I'm just scanning through, and there's at least 5 uncommon legendaries.
And every golden card will also be legendary, right? So, like, that's just a shoe-in.
Yeah, there are 6 white
right? So, like, that's
uncommon
just a
legends, not even counting rares and mythics. So,
yeah. So I think this card is good. I think it's going to play really well, give you some card advantage, and then creatures you control gain double strike. Could just end the game. And if it doesn't, you get another little bonus. You get to tempt the ring and make creatures better and or get more fringe value. So rating wise, you got to have legendary creatures. But if you do, what do you think?
I think it's like a 3 then. It's slow, but it's card advantage, so it's good.
Yeah. I think I'm going to give it a 3/5. I'm a little higher.
Sure.
I like the ring tempts you. And I think the double strike could just end games. Like, this just on turn 4 or 5. On turn 6 gives everything double strike. That's just backbreaking sometimes.
No, it certainly can be in the right deck.
All right, Westfold Rider, 2 mana, 3/1. Sacrifice it, destroy target artifact or enchantment, activate as a sorcery. That's a nice thing to have stapled onto a medium creature anyway. I'm here for it. That's like a 2/5 for me.
Yeah, just getting to put that effect in your main deck is worth half a point. Just that flexibility.
Absolutely. You cannot pass. Isn't it you shall not pass?
It's you cannot pass in the books, I believe, and you shall not in the movie.
Oh, that's a good little tidbit. 1 mana for an instant, destroy target creature that blocked or was blocked by a legendary creature this turn. So that's nice. You don't have to let damage go through to do this, which is really cool. save your creature in that way, which is really, really neat. Yeah, seems fine. You have to have legendary creatures again, but there's a whole archetype for that. So.
Yeah, we're just starting to see all of the legendary matters cards, and as we said, there are 6 uncommon legends, so not going to be hard to find them.
Absolutely not.
Sorry, 6 uncommon legends just in white. There's way more in the set.
And you want to have the legendary creatures, not the other way around. So
yeah.
I would probably say, how many legendary creatures do you want before you play this card?
4, maybe.
I think that might be a little low for me.
Maybe,
well, with the ring tempts you, if I've got, like, let's say 4 legendary creatures and, like, 3 ways to tempt the ring, at least. Then I think I'm in.
Well, and it does work both ways, right? Because it's the first part is target creature that blocked a legendary creature. So if you block one of theirs, it works.
You want to kill your own creature?
Yeah, never mind. Yeah. I misread that. Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
It does work, yes. Yes, but you don't want to.
But I don't think you want to.
Yes, fair point. Yeah, good point.
So I'm looking at some number of legendary creatures and rings. My number is 7 for me to be running this card, and then beyond that, if I get upwards of 10 possible, then I'm running all of these I can find.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay, I'm gonna give it like a 1/4. Like, there's some deck this is just gonna be freaking nuts. You just burn down literally anything. It's gonna be so good. And it's on a sliding scale of how many legendary permanent thingies can you create.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think you're gonna play it often enough, but there are gonna be some times you just can't. So yeah, I like 1/4.
All right. Eowyn, Lady of Rohan, 3 mana for a 2/4 human noble. At the beginning of combat on your turn, target creature gains your choice of first strike or vigilance until end of turn. If that creature is equipped, it gains first strike and vigilance until the end of turn instead. Okay, so it gains both. Equipped abilities you activate cost 1 less. It's an okay rate creature on its own. And you don't have to have equipment to make it work to gain first strike or vigilance, so this card just seems great. I don't think the second half of the text matters.
No, I don't think so either.
This doesn't strike me as an equipment set. Like, you might have one, but I don't think it's enough to, like, make me want to give this any bonus. So I like it for its rate. I like it for its first sentence. I'm on board at, like, honestly, a 3/5. First strike is strong.
I like it at a 3/5. I will say this is the first one of these cards that I don't think hits the mark from a flavor perspective.
Why not?
I mean, Eowyn's a pretty major character. She's the niece of the King of Rohan, King Theoden, and her main thing in the movie, right, is she rides to the battle of Pelennor Fields disguised as a man because they didn't want her to come otherwise, and killed the Witch King of Angmar. But there's really no sort of equipment. I mean, she's got a sword, but everybody there had a sword. So I don't quite understand the equipment angle on this.
Didn't she steal the sword, though? Like, she took her father's armor to do the thing, kind of thing?
Yeah, to disguise herself, sure.
Yeah, like it was some sort, like the scene in Mulan where she, like, takes her dad's shit? Like, it had some meaning that she, like, went and did this thing. So, like, I don't know, I'll give it to her.
I don't think it's terrible. I just don't think it hits the mark like some of the other ones we've seen.
I will say, flavor-wise, she kills the guy, so why would this give other creatures an ability? Shouldn't she give herself the ability?
Yeah, like giving herself first strike would make sense there, because that's kind of what happened.
It does say target creature, so it can be herself, so that's fine.
Yeah.
So I guess that's okay. But anyway, rating-wise, I like it 3/5. That is the last white card, and we are about 20 minutes over, so we're going to call it here, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Yanks, thanks for joining us.
Anytime.
If you guys enjoyed this, make sure you go back and check out the introduction where we go over all of the things you guys need to know about the set, new and returning mechanics, as well as all the draftable archetypes. Check that out, and I will be posting up the rest of the colors, and they're probably already out. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye. I'd like to end this video with a special thank you to those of you guys who have signed up for my Patreon. Without my wonderful patrons, none of this content would be possible. If you'd like to support this content and get your name up on the Wall of Fame, you can sign up for our Patreon by using the link down below in the description. Another way you can support the channel is by using code MNG5 with Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find cool stuff in stock. They have everything you need for Magic, board games, and any of your other nerdy hobbies.